I'm out on the road traveling this week, but I didn't want to let that be a reason to not get video content up, especially about something I've been giving a lot of thought and attention to lately, which is the mechanics and techniques of mind control or thought reform or brainwashing or whatever you want to call it. It's kind of funny, somebody pointed out to me recently that we use these terms and expressions to describe the ways that organizations, groups, or individuals will get us to think the way they want us to think, but in another sense, it's really just words that are used to describe us making bad decisions or bad judgments. And that's kind of how this works in real life, is we are convinced or deceived or made to feel a certain way by these mechanisms or control ideas. And so we make bad judgments or bad decisions, and that's really what it comes down to. I thought it might be interesting to talk about a particular aspect of this, which is what is called the thought-stopping cliche or the thought-terminating cliche. And this is an expression of something that Robert Lifton came up with. He wrote in, I've got a quote here, he wrote in his book back in 1961, he wrote a book called Thought Reform and the Psychology of Totalism, a study of brainwashing. And Lifton was one of the original groundbreaking pioneers in this field. And he wrote, "The language of the totalist environment is characterized by the thought-terminating cliche. The most far-reaching and complex of human problems are compressed into brief, highly reductive, definitive-sounding phrases, easily memorized and easily expressed. These become the start and finish of any ideological analysis." Now, in modern terms, or in looking at how these come about now, you might think of memes that you see on Facebook or all over the internet. Almost every one of them is a thought-terminating or a thought-stopping cliche. It allows you to basically justify or stop thinking about something anymore, because the cliche just justifies or gives you a reason for something, and then you don't have to look at it anymore. You don't have to think about it anymore. And these are expressed in so many different ways. There's some examples here. It doesn't have to be that the thought-stopping cliche is not true. It could be a statement of truth. It's how it's used, and it's how the individual himself uses it in his own thinking. Because if it stops any further critical analysis or any further critical thinking about a particular subject, or stops an argument in its tracks, then you're dealing with a thought-stopping cliche. Examples are everything happens for a reason. Don't judge. Why? Because I said so. Right? Just no more thinking about it. And there are so many of them. In religion, these exist. You could have the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. That's it, right? It's just, what are we going to do about this situation, or how do we deal with, this situation of poverty amongst the lower classes, right? Well, the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. In other words, that's it. That's the end of the conversation, when it should be the beginning of the conversation. Or God works in mysterious ways, right? Only God can judge, or God has a plan, right? Now, it may well be that God does have a plan. I don't know, but I do know that if you use that in such a way as to, end the conversation and cease working out real-world solutions for things, then you are using that as a thought-stopping cliche. Now, Scientology, to bring this to the subject of the video, uses thought-stopping cliches all throughout its materials. And I'll give you some examples of that, because I thought it might be of interest, and it's an interesting way to look at it, as to how it is that Scientology can control its members through some of these. One of them that they use, and this is actually a fairly big one, is he's PTS. Now, PTS stands for potential trouble source. And that is a term or a label that is used. And I've used the word labeling to describe thought-stopping cliches in the past. I've written articles and made videos talking about the dangers of labeling. And what I was using labeling before I was familiar with the term thought-stopping cliche. PTS, potential trouble source, is a label that's given to somebody in Scientology, which means that they are connected to somebody who, a suppressive person, someone who is trying to squash or stop them or impede their ability to survive or get along in life. And according to the theory of Scientology, when you are PTS, it means that you will be a trouble source. You cause trouble. You make problems. You are somebody who has problems. You have issues. You get sick. You have accidents. You are not getting along well in life. You have bad luck. You have bad things happen to you just out of the blue or all of a sudden. Anybody who gets into an accident for any reason is labeled PTS. Anybody who has a string of bad luck happen to them is labeled PTS. It's a way of not only giving a label to someone, but actually assigning blame to them within the Scientology context because they've done something to somehow put themselves into a position where they are being suppressed or held down by some suppressive person or some suppressive group or organization, right? For example, anybody who listens to my videos, because I am a suppressive person according to Scientology, will be PTS. And therefore, in the world of Scientology, if you have an accident, you break your arm, and they were to sit you down and do an interview with you and ask, well, have you been connected to anybody who is anti-Scientology or against Scientology or trying to give you a hard time or disagreeing with, Scientology beliefs in your life in some way, and the guy were to say, well, I watch these videos by Chris Shelton, they'd go, oh, well, there you go. You're PTS. That's it. End of story, right? And it ceases any more thought on the process of, why did this guy get into an accident, or why did he, have this bad luck, or why is he looking at these videos, right? Or why is he questioning what's going on in Scientology? Suddenly all that gets parked because he's PTS.